In life, the greatest conversation you will ever have is the one you have with yourself. Yet, many people allow this inner dialogue to become their greatest enemy, filled with doubts, criticism, and fear. But what if, for just 3 days, you change the tone of that voice? What if, instead of tearing yourself down, you spoke to yourself with strength, with clarity, with purpose? The ancient masters understood. The words you repeat become the path you walk. So today, I am not here to tell you what to believe. I am here to remind you, you are always listening to yourself, and for the next 3 days, I challenge you, walk to yourself like someone you deeply respect, someone you want to see rise. Because transformation does not begin in the world, it begins within the mind, and the words you speak to yourself are the seeds from which your future will grow. Let us begin. From the moment we wake up in the morning to the time we close our eyes at night, there is a constant stream of dialogue happening inside us. This inner voice comments on our actions, judges our behavior, questions our decisions, and evaluates our worth. It is a companion that never leaves us, and yet most people never take the time to understand it, to question it, or to guide it. But this voice, this inner dialogue, is not just noise. It is the foundation of how we experience the world. The tone, the language, and the content of our inner voice shape our mood, influence our behavior, and ultimately construct our reality. If the voice inside is filled with doubt, fear, anger, or shame, then these emotions become the lens through which we interpret every event in our lives. When we talk about reality, we often think it is something objective, something that exists independently of us. But in truth, our reality is filtered and shaped through the mind, and the mind listens to the voice that echoes within it. That voice becomes the storyteller of our life, narrating each scene, giving meaning to each moment. And just like a story can be told in different ways, with hope or with despair, with confidence or with fear, your life is being told by your inner voice. If it constantly reminds you of your failures, your shortcomings, and your insecurities, then even in moments of success, you will not feel fulfilled. On the other hand, if that voice speaks with encouragement, with awareness, and with calmness, then even in moments of challenge, you will find strength. The truth is, most people do not choose the tone of their inner voice. It is shaped by past experiences, by the voices of others, by childhood memories, and by the environment we grew up in. Without awareness, it becomes a reflection of our conditioning, but the mind, like any tool, can be trained. The voice inside can be softened, redirected, and empowered. To do this, the first step is to observe. Begin by listening carefully to how you speak to yourself. Are the words harsh or kind? Are the messages supportive or limiting? When you make a mistake, do you speak to yourself the way you would speak to a friend, or do you become your own harshest critic? Awareness leads to understanding, and once you understand the patterns of your inner dialogue, you can begin to change them. If your inner voice tells you that you're not good enough, pause and ask, where does this belief come from? Who taught me this? Is it true? Often, we will find that the voice is not even ours. It belongs to a teacher who once humiliated us, a parent who never believed in us, or a society that set unrealistic expectations. But now, in this moment, we have the power to reclaim that voice and make it our own. And this begins with intention. Just as a musician trains the ear, we must train the mind to listen and to choose how to speak from within. You are the creator of your internal environment. And just like a garden needs careful tending, your inner world requires conscious attention. The words you speak within become the seeds. Speak anger, and you will grow tension. Speak doubt, and you will grow fear. Speak compassion, and you will grow peace. This is not about denying reality or pretending everything is perfect. It is about choosing how you respond to the imperfections. The inner voice does not need to be loud, but it must be clear. It does not need to be constantly positive, but it must be truthful and grounded in self-respect. For 3 days, if you were to simply shift the way you speak to yourself, you would begin to notice a shift in how you see the world. It is not magic, and it is not a shortcut. It is awareness, it is presence. And most of all, it is discipline, discipline to catch the mind when it drifts into negativity, discipline to redirect it when it becomes self-sabotaging, discipline to remain patient, because just as the body does not change in one workout, the voice within does not transform in a single moment. But transformation begins with the decision to take responsibility for what you allow inside your own head. The way you speak to yourself influences your posture, your energy, your expression, and your choices. It is reflected in how you walk into a room, how you respond to others, and how you carry the weight of your responsibilities. People often focus on outer achievements, but overlook the root of those actions, the mindset from which they arise. You cannot expect a tree to bear sweet fruit if its roots are poisoned. In the same way, you cannot expect your life to blossom if your inner voice is constantly pulling you down. The strength you need is not found outside. It is cultivated within, one thought at a time, one word at a time, and it all begins with what you say when you are alone with yourself. Words carry energy. They shape the atmosphere, influence emotions, and leave invisible impressions on the soul. When you speak to someone with love, their heart opens. When you speak with anger, walls rise. And when you speak to yourself, whether with kindness or cruelty, that energy does not disappear. It settles into your body, your habits, and your future. The mind is not a passive listener. It is a sponge that absorbs the tone, the message, and the belief behind every word you use. So if your words are laced with weakness, your spirit begins to believe it is weak. If your words are filled with strength, even if softly spoken, they create the foundation for inner resilience. Most people underestimate the power of self-talk. They believe thoughts are harmless, that negative language is just a momentary release. But in reality, the language we use becomes a program the subconscious begins to follow. Tell yourself you're tired and fatigue deepens. Tell yourself you're not ready and hesitation grows. Tell yourself you're worthless and your energy will begin to reflect that emptiness. Words act like commands to the deeper parts of the mind. The same way a computer runs based on its code, the human being moves through life based on the dialogue they repeat inside. The danger lies in repetition. A single negative thought may not be dangerous, but the repeated use of negative words becomes the architecture of your identity. This is why awareness is so essential. You must become the guardian of your language, not only when you speak out loud, but especially when you speak to yourself in silence. In moments of struggle, you must notice whether your words are lifting you or breaking you further. And when you begin to change the vocabulary of your inner world, the outer world slowly shifts with it. It's not about lying to yourself or using empty affirmations. It's about speaking from a place of inner authority, a place that knows the difference between temporary difficulty and permanent identity. When you face failure, what do you say to yourself? Do you say, "I'm not good enough"? Or do you say, "This is a lesson and I will learn"? That choice, that sentence, determines the direction of your energy. Do you shrink or do you rise? In every moment, your words are drawing lines inside your mind, either building a cage or building a path. The cage keeps you stuck in cycles of shame, doubt, and fear. The path leads you into clarity, confidence, and action. And the only tool you need to build the path is your own voice, guided by truth and inner discipline. Many people think that strong people are born that way, but in reality, strength is not a gift. It is trained, and one of the ways strength is trained is through the words you choose in difficulty. The monk in the temple, the warrior in battle, the leader in a crisis, they are not speaking weakness to themselves. They are not entertaining the voice of fear. They are directing their mind again and again with words that align with their purpose. I can handle this. I will keep going. This moment does not define me. These are not just words. They are instructions to the nervous system, signals to the brain, a direction for the spirit. Some might think that this is a form of denial, but it is the opposite. It is awareness rooted in responsibility. It is refusing to be a victim of thoughts that were planted by fear, failure, or other people's judgment. It is reclaiming the authority to name your experience rather than allowing the mind to drift into autopilot negativity. You cannot control everything that happens in life, but you can control how you interpret it, and that begins with the words you use to explain it to yourself. There is an ancient saying that words are seeds. When you speak, you are planting something into the soil of your being. You may not see the results today, but over time those seeds will grow. If you plant self-pity, you harvest helplessness. If you plant determination, you harvest progress. Every time you speak to yourself, ask, what am I planting right now? What kind of energy am I choosing to grow inside me? Strong words do not need to be loud, they need to be intentional. A single sentence, spoken with clarity, can change the entire momentum of your day. I begin again. I am still learning. This is not the end. When these words become part of your inner vocabulary, you start to walk with different energy. You begin to carry yourself not with arrogance, but with quiet strength. That strength does not mean you feel perfect all the time. It means you are choosing, again and again, to respond with power rather than panic, with focus rather than fear. Language is a form of energy discipline. If you allow weak, fearful, and defeated words to dominate your self-talk, then your actions will follow in that same vibration. But if you correct the voice, realign the language, and speak like someone who is rooted in inner truth, then your behavior will begin to reflect that same strength. There is no mystery behind self-belief. It is built word by word, choice by choice, until one day, the voice inside is no longer a critic, but a source of guidance, stability, and light. Every word you speak to yourself is not just a fleeting thought. It is a building block. The mind is constantly listening, absorbing, and shaping its identity based on the repetition of those words. This is why what you say to yourself once may not seem powerful, but what you say over and over again becomes truth to your subconscious. It becomes the lens through which you see yourself and the world around you. The danger is not in the single sentence of self-doubt. It is in the habit of repeating it until it becomes who you think you are. When you consistently tell yourself, I'm not good enough, or I always mess things up, those words begin to form your self-image, and the more they are repeated, the deeper they root themselves into your being. Repetition creates identity. The person who constantly says, I'm tired, will begin to feel tired even in moments of potential energy. The person who says, I'm not smart enough, will begin to shy away from learning or speaking up, even when they have value to share. And the person who repeats, I'm not worthy, will push away love, opportunity, and growth, not because it isn't available, but because they have conditioned themselves not to believe it belongs to them. These beliefs did not arise overnight. They were constructed word by word, reinforced by repetition, and sealed by emotional association. But just as identity can be shaped by repetition, it can also be reshaped. The mind is not fixed. It is flexible, moldable, and open to change, but only if you take conscious control of the messages you send it. This is not about lying to yourself or pretending everything is perfect. It's about choosing a narrative that aligns with who you are becoming, not who you were when you were afraid. I am learning. I am capable. I am in the process of growing stronger. These are not just affirmations. They are declarations of intention. When you repeat them consistently, your mind begins to shift. It starts seeking evidence to support these new beliefs. Your behavior begins to follow your language. Your choices become reflections of this renewed identity. The repetition must be intentional. It is not enough to speak strength once in the morning and then allow fear to dominate your inner dialogue for the rest of the day. You must remind yourself again and again, especially in moments when the old patterns rise. When the old voice says, you can't do this, the new voice must be ready to answer, I am willing to try. It is through this repetition that the new identity is formed. Just like training the body requires consistent movement, Training the mind requires consistent messages. The more you practice, the more natural it becomes. The more natural it becomes, the more powerful it feels. Language is not just communication, it is creation, and what you repeatedly say internally becomes the foundation for your external reality. Your actions are influenced by your beliefs are shaped by your thoughts, and your thoughts are fueled by the words you choose. This is why transformation begins with something as simple and as powerful as speech. If you want to live with strength, you must speak with strength. If you want to walk with confidence, you must first talk with confidence, even if at first it feels uncomfortable or unfamiliar. Every new identity requires practice. The first time you say, "I am enough," it may feel like a lie. But say it again. Say it when you wake up. Say it when you feel weak. Say it when you are facing uncertainty. Over time, the repetition begins to sink in, not just into your mind, but into your body. Your posture changes, your breath changes, your energy shifts, not because the outside world has changed, but because the inner world is no longer repeating defeat. Most people live in cycles not because they are trapped by circumstances, but because they are trapped by language. They are repeating stories that were handed to them by others, without questioning them, without choosing better ones. The moment you take responsibility for what you repeat is the moment you begin to break the cycle. That responsibility is not easy, but it is powerful. You have to catch the old phrases when they arise. You have to interrupt them, replace them, reinforce the new ones with emotion, with movement, with breath. Let the new language be spoken with presence, not just habit. Even if no one else hears it, your inner voice is heard by the most important listener, yourself. It is your constant companion, your silent influence, your personal guide. And if that guide is untrained, it can lead you into fear, hesitation, and stagnation. But if that guide is refined through repetition of truth, strength, and clarity, it can lead you into action, resilience, and peace. The choice is not a one-time event. It is a daily practice, a daily repetition, a daily sculpting of the self. And with each repetition, the identity grows stronger, clearer, and more aligned with the person you were always meant to become. Patterns are powerful forces in human behavior. Most people live their lives on autopilot, following unconscious routines, habits, and inner narratives that have been repeated for years without question. These patterns shape how we think, how we respond, how we carry ourselves, and how we relate to the world. But what many do not realize is that these patterns are not fixed. They can be broken, and the first step to breaking them lies in becoming conscious of them. The act of talking to yourself deliberately, with purpose and clarity, even for just 3 days, has the potential to interrupt those long-standing patterns and open a path to transformation. The mind adapts to repetition. Whether it is positive or negative, the mind does not differentiate. It simply accepts what is repeated the most. This is why so many people remain trapped in cycles of self-doubt, fear, procrastination, and low self-worth. Not because they want to stay there, but because the inner dialogue that fuels those states has become so familiar that it feels normal. Changing that inner dialogue even for a short period disrupts the rhythm of that normality. It introduces something new, a different vibration, a different language, and that difference, small as it may seem, plants the seed for change. 3 days may appear insignificant, but it is not the length of time that matters. It is the intensity of presence within those days. When you commit to observing your inner language and shifting it intentionally, you force the mind out of its default mode. You no longer allow your thoughts to run unchecked. You become the gatekeeper of your own mental space. You begin to choose your words rather than letting old ones dictate your mood. This shift creates friction against the old programming, and in that friction, transformation begins. Talking to yourself with awareness is not something abstract or spiritual. It is deeply practical. When you replace a thought like "I always fail" with "I am learning," you don't just feel better, you change how you act. You're more likely to try again, to remain open to growth, to look for the lesson rather than the loss. If you say, "I can't do this," you will find reasons to stop. If you say, "I will figure it out," you activate curiosity, patience, and resilience. These are not just emotional shifts, they are behavioral ones. And behavior is what ultimately reshapes outcomes. Most people wait for external change before they change their internal language, but real growth works the other way around. By changing your inner speech first, you begin to see the world differently. You respond differently, you carry a different energy, and as a result, the world responds to you in new ways. In just 3 days of intentional self-talk, you may find yourself standing taller, breathing deeper, and approaching challenges with a clearer mind. Not because the world has become easier, but because your perspective has become stronger. These 3 days are not a magic solution. They are a reset button. They are a decision to reclaim the authority over your inner world. During this time, you may notice how often the negative voice tries to return. That's part of the process. You are not failing when the old thoughts come up. You are succeeding every time you catch them and redirect them. Each redirection is a small victory. Each chosen word is a brick in the foundation of a new mental structure. And by the end of 3 days, you will have proven something powerful to yourself, that you are not a slave to your thoughts. You are their master. 3 days of conscious self-talk create a gap between the old self and the emerging self. It allows you to step back and observe the voices that once controlled you. It shows you that you can choose differently. You may still hear the voice of doubt, but you won't obey it. You may still feel fear, but you won't speak from it. This shift is subtle but profound. It doesn't require years of training. It doesn't require a change in your environment. It requires commitment, presence, and consistency, qualities that are already within you. Every moment during those 3 days becomes an opportunity to practice awareness. From the way you speak to yourself when you wake up, to the words you choose when something goes wrong, to how you frame your own reflection in the mirror. Every word becomes a tool. Every sentence becomes a choice. And each choice, made consciously, breaks a little piece off the old structure that kept you small. You begin to see that you don't need to escape your life to grow. You need to escape the language that has kept your life limited. When you emerge from those 3 days, you will not be completely transformed, but you will be awakened. You will know what it feels like to speak with power, to listen with intention, and to guide yourself with clarity. That awareness alone is enough to make the old patterns uncomfortable, and once they become uncomfortable, they begin to lose their grip. From that point forward, change is no longer a distant dream. It becomes a lived experience. And it all starts with the words you choose to say to yourself, on purpose, with presence, for just 3 conscious days. When you learn to speak to yourself with intention, clarity, and strength, even for just 3 days, you begin to reshape the foundation of your inner world. You are no longer moved by the same doubts, no longer trapped in the same stories. You realize that transformation does not begin with external change, but with the silent words you choose in your most private moments. In those moments, you train your mind, build your identity, and reclaim your power. This is not about motivation that fades. It is about awakening discipline that lasts. When you speak to yourself like someone you respect, like someone you are responsible for guiding, your actions begin to align with your highest self. The old patterns lose their hold, and a new rhythm takes root, one grounded in awareness, resilience, and conscious repetition. You are not your past words. You are the voice you choose from this moment forward. Let it be one of strength. Let it be one of truth. And let it lead you beyond limitation into the life you were meant to create.